In this lecture, we are going to learn what these buttons are for, just up to here. In order to do that, we are going to use this program that prints the Fibonacci value for a number. If you don't know what the Fibonacci sequence is, there is an entry in Wikipedia, but the only thing you have to know is that it is this sequence that goes on, and this is the sequence definition. The sequence value for the number 0 is 0, the value for 1 is 1, and in the general case, the value is the two previous values summed up. So, the Fibonacci value for the number 3 equals the Fibonacci value for the number 2 plus the Fibonacci value for the number 1. That's everything you have to know in order to follow this lecture. Going back to our program, we create the class that is going to calculate Fibonacci values. We create the class that is going to print the values. We get the value for the number 3, and we print it. That's everything we do. The first thing we are going to do is we are going to run this program in normal mode just to see what happens. Right-click over main and select the option Run. What do we get in here? What we have in here is that we have made a mistake. I made an infinite recursion, the same function is being called again and again, so we ran out of memory, and the JVM, the Java Virtual Machine, just shuts down. We are going to debug our program to find where the failure is. What we are going to do is setting a breakpoint in here because I want to show something, and next we are going to set a breakpoint in the place where the infinite recursion is going on. And we are going to execute the program in debug mode. In order to do that, right-click over it, debug. To be honest, I don't usually use keyboard shortcuts in order to perform these actions because I find it very difficult to remember all those things when it is so easy to work with the UI. Imagine that you are in a breakpoint, you have stopped there, and you want to know something about the classes you see in here, but you don't want to step into them, you don't want to change the state of the debugger. You can navigate to them by clicking Ctrl-click, and you can inspect what they are supposed to do. You can read the source code or whatever you want. And if you want to go back to the place the debugger has stopped, you can use this button over here. Show execution point. Just click it and you go back where the debugger is placed right now. If we want to execute this instruction or this line where the debugger is stopped and go to the next instruction, you have to use this one, step over, meaning it's not going to step into the actual mini steps that have to be done in order to perform or to carry out this instruction. So as you can see in here, we have moved one line, just one line. What we are going to do now is we are going to execute the program all the way through until it finds an active breakpoint. In order to do that, you have to hit this button in here. And it stops where we set the breakpoint. We have here the values of the variables of the program, and if we hover over them, also a pop-up shows up. This can be disabled if it is annoying to you. We see that number equals 3, so we are going to make a call to get the Fibonacci number of 3 minus 2 equals 1. So we are going to get the Fibonacci number for the number 1 and for the number 2. And one of them is failing. So we want to know which one of them actually is. So we have to step into these calls in order to know what it is actually happening. In order to do that, you have this button here, Step Into. You have this other button, Forced Step Into. So what's the difference among the two? The difference is that you can set up some classes that cannot be stepped into. For example, system classes, class loaders, all those things, maybe you don't want to step into them. So you can tell IntelliJ not to do so. And when you do that, even if you click this button, you won't step into them. Instead, you will step over. If in that session you want to step into them without changing the settings, you have to use this button, Force Step Into. We are going just to step into, and we see that we are examining what the execution of that call actually is, because we are seeing the number 1, which equals 3 minus 2. And as we saw in the Wikipedia page, there were 2 initial cases, and for the number 1, we had to return 1. Oh, so we see in here that we've made a mistake. We are returning for the number 1, we are returning 0, and actually we have repeated the case 1 twice. So here it is the mistake. So maybe we don't realize that's what is happening. So we could still go on and keep debugging. For example, right now we are going to execute the other call. So we are going to get the Fibonacci value for the number 2. We can step into that as well, using the same procedure. You can see in here that the number equals 2. And if we step over, by hitting this button in here, we execute the next instruction. And we can see that number 2 is not 1. And we see that we go to the general case. So it will be 2 minus 2, we are going to evaluate it for 0. So we can step into again by hitting the same button. And here we should expect to return 0 for number 0. So it would be easy if we step over to see that we have made a mistake, because for number 0 we are hitting the general case. So once we have spotted that, we just click Stop in here, finish the debugger session, and we change it. So number 1 replaced by number 0. We execute it again, this time in normal mode. And here we are. We get the right result.